Hello everyone, I just got this banjo from a previous customer of mine who we gotten to know each other pretty well, and he sent this to me in the mail. And he had it delivered to me from like Georgia or someplace. He hasn't seen it yet, but he wants me to do some repairs on it, and you can see this thing is in some pretty dire need of some help. It's missing a couple pegs, two pegs, and it has this weird hole here for another peg. I don't know why that's there, but it's not a 6-string banjo. It's only 4 notches. Perhaps they drilled in the wrong spot and decided they didn't want it there. Who knows? But whatever the case, there's so much disastrous stuff going on with this banjo. It's a nice old antique homemade banjo that someone made probably in the mid 1900s, if I were to take a very, very rough guess, just based on the aging of it. But let's look at it. So you can see it was a tack head. So there's no sign of brackets anywhere on it. And it's just a hoop of wood that someone hammered together. You got nails here going through the whole thing. And you have the remains of these tacks, which are gone now. But they use so many tacks on this banjo, it's unbelievable. If you look at this side, look at that. They use so many tacks, the wood split off, and just, God, it's been kind of destroyed by the just super over liberal use of the tacks. And if you look, the dowel stick, there's no attachment, so the dowel stick just kind of stays there by sheer will, I guess. I don't know how that worked. But if we take it out, we can see that the dowel stick is whittled. It looks like someone just got it off of a tree branch or something. It's just hand whittled. There's still knife cuts. There's still pieces of wood that haven't been split off entirely. Someone definitely just kind of whittled this house out in a day, and it is hardly centered. So you can tell this thing is really a homemade antique. So if we look at the peg head here, you can see someone did some kind of design on it with pencil. I don't know what that is. It looks like leaves of some kind or something. I don't know. Or measurements, perhaps. Perhaps they were measuring places for the... oh, here you go, here you go. So if you look here, you can see a straight line that they were using for the guide for these two peg holes. And then you see a very faint line continuing that way up to this one. So it looks like they did here and here. And then this one was initially drilled here, but then they changed their mind and wanted to put a peg here instead. And for some reason, there is a nail in the very corner there. I don't know what that's doing there, but you can see it's sticking out on that end too. And this peg has actually split the wood. So this banjo is, it's suffering a little bit. And the 5th string pip, look at that. That is just a flathead screw. And that also split the wood. There's so much split wood with this banjo. You can see the neck is also split, and the rim is split. Now, there's a couple interesting design choices that I see the original maker having made with this banjo. So the first thing I noticed that was interesting is with the drum. It's a tack head, but there is this red stain on the part that would have been visible under the skin. So you can see this red stain that goes all the way around. It's like this rosewood stain or a mahogany sort of stain, and the inside is painted black. So this color scheme was very common for 19th century banjos. You know, Boucher famously stained his pots with a rosewood color just to make them look prettier. And this seems to be a mimicry of that. This is just kind of similar to that. And someone glued like paper all over this. There's just so much wood glue and stuff just sticking all over this thing. It's nasty, but look at that. There's so many tacks. Tack, 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 tack. Someone was hammering the whole thing together. Now, let's look at the neck itself, which has an interesting little feature here. Look at that. What is that? So you see how the fretboard here is slightly recessed. And right under that is this little nook. And that goes around. You see it goes straight across to the other side. It's a little filled in with glue here, but you can see it, right? So what that is a mimicry of another kind of banjo design. So here's a buckbee. This is a factory-made buckbee. You can tell it's much prettier. But if you look at that, do you see that nook? Now, some banjos had very dramatic nooks like this one, but some had ones that were about the same size as this one. So why is that nook there? And why is the fretboard recessed? Do you see how this is further back than this? So if you imagine when you have the pot right there, and you have a tension hoop, that tension hoop will not have room unless you cut back a little bit and also cut a nook here, just to supply some room for that tension hoop to move around. But this one's a tack head. So why did they do that? Why did they cut it like they were gonna add a tension hoop on it? I don't know. So why did they cut it like they were gonna add a tension hoop on it? Who knows? But with tack heads, you don't really need something like that because it's going to be pretty much flush. But you see, they made room for a tension hoop right there. You see that? That space where my nose is? You can have a tension hoop there. Why'd they do that? I don't know, because there is absolutely no sign of any tension hoops. It's all tack head. Perhaps they did it just to mimic, factory-made banjos that had tension hoops. Or they were planning to have a tension hoop, but they just never got around to it, so they just tacked the head on. That happens to me. I might do that sometimes. Who knows? I don't know. And you can see, it's just, somebody knew what a banjo looked like. Somebody had experience with, a buckbee or a boucher maybe even, or a luscombe or something. And they saw that and they went and made their own at home. And that's what this is. And I would just really like to know more about the person who made this, what their name was, why they made it, who inspired them, because those sorts of questions I think are important. And just interesting to ask. And there you are. And now I have to repair it, which is gonna take a little while.